I was approached by the senior prosecutor who informed me that...
it's fine. You were approached by the senior prosecutor. Is it correct that it was with a request?
Yes, yes.
Yes, and what happened further? You need not disclose what the discussion with the senior prosecutor was.
And I waited until about 2 o'clock because I was informed that the people would arrive at 2 o'clock. When I went to check if they had arrived, I was then informed that they were not there yet.
Yes, so you established that they were not there.
Yes, they were not.
Yes.
I was then called by the secretary to the senior magistrate. And this was towards 2:30.
Yes, what happened? You may not disclose what the secretary to the senior magistrate told you. What happened thereafter?
Yes, I then proceeded to where the said confession was to be done.
And where was that?
That was in room number 2.
Room number 2.
Yes, what happened further?
And as I came towards room number 2, I then saw a number of people standing outside the office.
Were they identifiable?
Some of them, yes.
Yes, how were they identifiable?
They were Metro Police officers clad in uniform.
Yes, and where were they at that stage?
They were standing just outside office number 2 in the passage.
Number 2 passage.
Yes.
And there was also a person who was in handcuffs. And there was also a gentleman who was standing among all of those people who was, well, clad in a suit.
And where precisely was this gentleman in a suit standing?
He was also standing in the passage, but slightly on the side, on the side from where the Metro officials were standing.
Yes, may I proceed?
And well, shortly thereafter, we then proceeded to the office, in office number 2. That was myself and the presiding officer.
And who was the presiding officer?
It was Mrs. Vivian Cronier.
Mrs. Vivian Cronier.
The witness who has just stood down.
That is correct.
Yes.
The person in handcuffs was also led into the office.
Who led him into the office?
I think it was one of the police officials, one of the officials.
Yes.
And the gentleman clad in a suit also came into the office.
Lona ke owayegqoke isuti naye wangena ngaphakathi e-office.
Yes.
I think this is where the presiding officer asked one of the police officials, I think, if I'm not mistaken, my lord, I think he was the investigating officer or of the matter or something, but she requested him to make copies of his appointment certificate.
Ngicabanga ukuthi ngaleso sigaba ke ilapho na ke imanje yase icela ke omunye amaphoyisa ayelapho ngicabanga ukuthi ke ilona owumphenyi ke noma ke umseshi ke wecala ukuthi ke alethe ke i-certificate noma amtshengise ke i-certificate sakhe somsebenzi.
And this is after he introduced himself to the presiding officer.
Kwakusemuva ke ukuthi eyichazile-ke noma eyishilo-ke kuyona imanje ukuthi ubani.
Yes.
After he brought the copies of the appointment certificates, he then left the office.
Emuva kokuthi ke amakhophi lawo ke ewalethile azobe i-certificate wase ephuma ke ihhovisi.
So who's that now?
And this is the police officer. I think it's Mr. Mokhane or something.
Iphoyisa ke ngicabanga ukuthi uMr. Mokhane.
Yes.
And just before we could start, I remember the presiding officer had a conversation with the gentleman. I mentioned earlier that he was dressed in a suit.
Ngaphambilini kokuthi njena siqaleke ngiyakhumbula ukuthi imanje yaba nako ke uxoxisana noma ke ukhuluma nalomlisa ke engimshilo ngaphambilini ukuthi wayegqoke isuit.
Could you hear what the nature of the conversation was?
Well, as far as I can recall, I think she was asking him who he was.
Uma ngikhumbula kahle ngicabanga ukuthi imanje yayimbuza ke ukuthi wayewubani.
Yes.
And the gentleman said that he was the legal representative of the suspect at the time.
Wase echaza ke ukuthi ummeli womsolo kwawumsolwa ke ngaleso sikhathi leso.
And this was confirmed by the suspect himself after he was asked by the presiding officer.
Lokho ke kwase kuqinisekiswa ke uyena umsolo emukamuva kokuthi ke imanje ke ibuza kuyena ke naye ke waqinisekisa impela ukuthi impela kunjalo.
Yes.
I think after all the pleasantries were done, we then proceeded with the business of the day.
Ngicabanga ukuthi emuva kokuthi konke ke sekwenziwe ke sekuqaliwe ke sase siqala ke ngalokho ke okwakusihlanganise lapho ngalelo langa.
And who was present in the office at that stage when you proceeded with the business of the day?
It was myself, the presiding officer, the gentleman as described before, and the suspect.
Kwakuyimina, kwakuyimanje, nalomlisa ke bese ngichazile ngaphambilini kanye nomsolwa ababekhona ke ngaphakathi kulelo office lelo.
Do you perhaps remember what the sitting arrangement was in the office?
Yes, I do.
Ngisakhumbula ukuthi kwakuhlezwe kanjani ngalelo langa kulelo office.
Who was seated where?
The presiding, as I'm standing here, my lord, the presiding officer would have been in front on the other side of the table.
Nanjengoba ngimi lana ke imanje yona ke izoba ke ngaphambili ke kwitafula.
I was sitting on well, to my left, and the suspect was sitting on my right.
Mina ngathi ke ngangihlezi kuhlangothi ke lakwesokunxele bese ukuthi umsolwa ke ehlezi kuhlangothi lami langakwesokudla.
Sorry, just if you can, in relation to the presiding of the Ms. Grenier, how were you each seated?
Well, in relation to Ms. Grenier, because then she would be facing this side, then that means the suspect would have been to her left and I would have been to her right.
Uma ke uMrs Konye wayengalena ke kwetafula ke umsolo ke wayezoba ke ku left wakhe mina ngibe ku right wakhe uMrs Konye.
Yes.
And the gentleman in a suit was sitting on my left hand side because there's a couch in office number 2 that's on the left hand side.
La engangihlezi khona ke lona ke wayegqoke isuit yena ke wayehlezi ke ku left wami ngoba ke kwakuno couch eyikhona kulelo kamera le level number 2.
Yes, but in relation to the suspect, where was the gentleman in the suit seated?
I was between them. He was on the left hand side, the suspect was on my right hand side.
Mina ke ngangihlezi phakathi nendawo ukubona bobabili lona ke wayegqoke isuit kanye naye ke umsola. Yena ke lo wesuit ku left umsola yena eku right wami.
And what was your overall impression about the suspect? It has been put to Ms. Grenier that the suspect was coerced, assaulted. What was your overall impression?
My lord, my overall impression was that, of course, looking at the demeanor of the suspect at the time, he appeared to me like somebody who really wanted to speak whatever it was that he wanted to say.
Mina ke ngendlela ke wayebukeka ngayo ke bhekeka ngayo ke umsolo wakhe ngalelo langa lelo ke ukuthi kwakuwumuntu onalentshisakalo ke ofisayo noma ufunayo ukukhuluma nama yini leyo wayefuna noma efisa ukuthi ayisho ngalelo langa lelo.
And are you able to perhaps say why you were of that view?
Well, because if I may just fast forward a bit, when the rights were explained to him, and the fact that he was not compelled in any way to make a statement, his specific words were, I really want to speak. I just want to say this. If I can say it in Zulu, my lord, he said, "Tasising, funa uqhubeka ngikhulume."
Uma ke amalungelo akhe esewachazelwa ke sekushiwo ke noma ukuthi ke futhi akaphoqelekile ukuthi ke asho lutho noma ke akhulumeke kwakuyena ke othi ngiyafuna ukusho lokho washo lamagama ke usisaqedwe washo manje esho ngesizulu. No lady, I really want to speak.
And do you remember if the suspect had any injuries?
Not at all, sir.
Ukulimala noma ke amanqaba cha ayengekho nje wayengenabo ukulimala wena.
Sorry, that question is, the answer is ambiguous. That's you.
Yes.
Not at all. Do you remember if the suspect had any injuries?
Oh.
Not at all, sir.
I apologize. my
Yeah,
lord.
but it's double senor.
Yes. Can you
No, my lord, I did not see any injuries on the suspect.
Cha ke akukho nje ukulimala maka amanqaba engawabona noma amanqaba engawabona mina kuyena umsolo.
It was also put by the defense to Ms. Grenier that the suspect did not sign the statement, Exhibit JJ. What is your comment?
He signed it in my presence because I'm the one that gave him the pen.
Istatement lesi wasayinda ngikhona imina owamnikeza ipen.
Thank you, my lord. That is all.
Thanks. What's the time, Mr. Balan?
It's 11.
Can we